Hi, this is Prachi Jaitly, and welcome to our brand new show, My Take, the show where we talk to experts and discuss their opinions. This episode will focus on Prime Minister of Republic of India, Shri Narendra Modi's state visit to the United States. Our panelists are subject matter experts and seasoned professionals from different industries who will share their opinions and discuss the implications of this visit for India and for the world. Joining me in this discussion and moderating this talk with me is my co host, Phani Krishna. Let's welcome him to the studio.
Thank you. As part of this My Take program, in the first episode, we will be covering three most important topics in the form of trade and commerce, sustainability, and food and technology. As part of this panelist, we are bringing in Rakesh Malhotra, who is the CEO and President of Global Natural Resources. And Rakesh is a well-traveled, value-based thought leader, an entrepreneur, and an author based out of Chicago. And on topic of the sustainability, we are bringing in Ravi Karkara, who is a renowned global sustainability champion and mentor with over 2 decades of experience in promoting sustainable development. And lastly, we will be joined by Vinay Indraganti, who is a founder of Blue Cocoon Digital and a co-founder for AI for Food. These experts will be talking about their experiences, their take on these topics, and let's welcome them.
All right, so let's welcome our panelists to our studio. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for joining my take. And as I was mentioning to our viewers, the place, the platform where we have experts from different industries and different walks of life coming together and discussing various topics of importance and relevance. So thank you again for joining. And as you can see, we have Phani as my co-host as well. Rakesh ji, thank you very much for joining us. I will start from you. I have seen your posts everywhere on Twitter, on Facebook, and you are such a proficient writer as well. You have seen Prime Minister Modi's visit, first-hand experience. You were there right from the ceremony at the White House. How do you see it from your experience? What do you think is the significance of this trip?
Thank you, Parachi ji. It has been a very significant visit from the point of view that this is the first state visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi in his 9 years term. The previous visits were important, but they were not state visit. This visit was a state visit where there are multiple ceremonies, including the arrival ceremony, which includes a diaspora presence in the White House for the first time in excess of 10,000 people. And at the same time, Prime Minister Modi was invited to the capital to address the joint meeting of Senate and House of Representatives, which gives a chance to the Prime Minister Modi to showcase India's strength, the democracy, and the development. And at the same time, he was also invited the next day by the Vice President Kamala Harris, and also this meeting was attended by Secretary Blinken. And in addition to that, this visit also has a, a reception hosted by the US India Strategic Forum as well as the community dinner in the evening. So I will say this visit was well packed with full of agenda and lot of meetings, and I will say it is one of the very productive trip, and it has significance not only from the point of view of bilateral relations. I have never seen any bilateral meeting having multilateral impact, and it is going to influence the world peace, the world prosperity, the socio-economic ecosystem of the entire world. Russia is looking at this meeting, and China is looking at this meeting. So most of the countries were looking at this meeting when the heads of two largest and oldest democracy meet.
Yeah, thank you, Rakesh ji. I mean, it's well said. We all enjoyed. I'm 100% sure all of our panelists, and including us, were there. Uh, Ravi, just let's take it. You being a sustainability champion. what is the so-called possible investment opportunities between India and USA, especially after the state visit? What are the possibilities? What's your take?
So, just to build on to what Rakesh ji just said, I think I was involved both in New York and in Washington. I think for me, I think the context is really critical because as we've seen in the last few years, I think the world is really struggling with the global demand on energy. The energy crisis has very clearly exposed the vulnerability of Europe and many other parts of the world that they need to look at a very clear plan on energy transition from coal and oil and gas into green sources of energy. To just to give, for me, it was absolutely delightful, exciting, and I think one of the best times for India and US to come together, not only in terms of looking at climate action and where we are struggling with climate change. I think the first meeting in New York here with Prime Minister Modi with Elon Musk was absolutely brilliant because that set the tone for many of us who've been looking at sustainability and green energy, where Elon Musk and Modi ji talked about the importance of solar energy and EV. And I think with the very clear opportunity in India of lithium being discovered in Jammu and more recently in Rajasthan, it was a very very exciting time. Of course, the yoga day was created a Guinness Book of World Record for most nationals coming together in one location and performing yoga. I have never seen so many people. I've been living here for such a long time, almost struggling and really wanting to be there just to be in the same aura or the space with Modi ji. And of course, all of us who then went to DC. For me, having a leader on both sides, very clearly sinking, first of all, really acknowledging that the world needs a very clear climate action urgent plan, be it the Build Back Better Act here in America and the very clear commitment of net zero that Prime Minister Modi ji has made, including the energy transition. And we saw that. We saw that in every single speech. We saw clearly a very clear statement made by both of them in sync with each other. And why is it so important, right? Because if you look at the global emitters, right, you're looking at USA, where we're sitting right now as one of the biggest emitters when it comes to CO2. And India's per capita has really increased over the last few years. And it is projected in the next 25 years as India is going to move into more dependence and more manufacturing, the per capita of energy consumption is only going to increase by the day. To really have that foresight and the will to come together to look at bringing the private sector, bringing the academics, bringing the startups, the young entrepreneurs, the innovators to come together and look at creating huge investment opportunities, be it solar manufacturing both in India and in USA, in terms of green hydrogen, and I'll probably speak more about it later. But also looking at energy, carbon capture technology. I think it's been absolutely, for me, it was too good to be true. Honestly, it was so exciting, and just to see him live in person and the president speaking about some issue that I've been working for the last 2 decades, it was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you. That was very insightful. So moving on to as Rakesh Malhotra mentioned that the decisions were multilateral, and as Ravi mentioned about the energy crisis. If we talk about the food industry, and we have the subject matter from that industry, we have Vinay Indraganti with us. Vinay, first of all, thank you very much for joining us. A question for you in terms of Indo-US partnership in the food industry, in the food sector. How can that contribute to achieving the goals pertaining to food security globally?
Yeah, thank you, Prachi and Phani for having me here. And just to kind of first add on to what Ravi and Rakesh talked about, being there in person was really a very momentous occasion for all of us,
Yes.
both in the White House and at the Kennedy Center. Um, One thing that really stood out was um, on both sides. The intent is clearly there. The opportunities were multifold in the past, right? I think Ravi's talked about that, but this kind of intent from both India and US, and not just leadership, but you can look at the diaspora as well. You can see that in the speeches that John Chambers talked about, at the Kennedy Center. Secretary Blinken talked about. They really want to make this work. And when Prime Minister Modi talked about, and he did mention in the agriculture and food as a very core area for us. So the acknowledgement is there that this is a definitely a multifold partnership that really we're forging together. And all of us being here in the US, we feel that this is the right moment for us to really give back all the things that we have learned from India, learn from here in the US, and really be that bridge to make this really a reality. Now, coming back to your question, Prachi, I think we are at a very unique time in the world, because while we have taken care of the food safety problem, right, with our Green Revolution 1.0. I'll call it the Green Revolution 1.0 because the primary focus of that was solving hunger, right, solving accessibility to food. So it was really the food availability problem. Now that has been solved with our Green Revolution 1.0, which means making food abundant. Right? Still, it's not there in all parts of the world, all pockets in different countries, but overall, we're making enough food today. We're probably wasting more food than we consume. So that's really, and actually 40% of the food is wasted. So it's still quite a bit, but that shows that we've crossed that bridge. However, food security, when you talk about food security challenges, we then talk about making nutritious food, widely available at affordable prices. We're not there yet, right? So you go to the marketplace today, you'll see all the organic foods are way more expensive than non-organic food, or high nutrition, high protein food from good sources are more expensive. So we still have that issue today. However, the way we believe that India and US can come together is, one, there is a vast amount of knowledge that is prevalent in India in terms of making organic foods, making plant-based foods, and that's what the need of the hour is, not only here in the US but across the world. So there's a lot of knowledge base that India has to provide. Secondly, a lot of the farmers around the world are looking at ways to really improve their yield, improve the quality of their crop, without or not without, but really reducing their dependence on agrochemicals. And these are areas that we really feel that India is really making a lot of progress. There's all these Kisan drones. There is work that's being done on the farm with mobile applications and such. So these are areas that we think India can contribute, especially given the Ukraine situation. India really took it on itself to be the breadbasket of the world for wheat, and we believe they can do more in this area with technology from definitely from the US. So there's a lot of natural affinity towards this partnership. We definitely see a lot more of this coming forth in the coming years.
I mean, very interesting topics, Vinay. I mean, yes, we can elaborate on each of your topic much more. And, like I think so Ravi also mentioned about the sustainability. We'll come back to this aspect of it. Rakeshji, coming back to this, right? So from your perspective, because there was a visit happened, a state visit, no, not really a state visit. It was another visit happened from 2016. Prime Minister Modi has come to USA. How it is so different this time? Yes, it is a state tour, we get it, but from a growth perspective and every other aspects of cultural diaspora or Indian cultural expansion, what is that? How it is different?
See, first of all, as you rightly said, the main difference between the two visits is that it is a state visit. Previously, it was not. But most important thing is that you see how the world is shaping and the global incidents or global things are happening. For example, Ukraine war or India attained the presidencies of G20, India's contribution and India's requirement of defense. So there are many things which have changed since his last visit in 2016. And most importantly, the US president has changed. So this meeting of Mr. Modi has taken India US ties to another level. Primarily, if you look at it, Vinay mentioned about intention, and Ravi also mentioned about his meeting with Elon Musk. You know, when trade integration contributes to the ties, to the friendship, to the relationship, it leads to prosperity, it leads to peace. And if you look at Prime Minister Modi has met several CEOs, several leaders, and the US leadership here, which is giving a very loud and clear message. And that message is when you try to, amalgamate or integrate technology, talent, and trade, it contributes to economic prosperity not between the two countries but also globally. And when I mention the global incidents, what is happening since last visit, you look at previous visits, there was no COVID. So COVID happened in 19 and 20 and 21 part, and India's contribution to the world is its vaccine, and India's contribution to the donating or presenting or gifting a vaccine to 150 countries. So which means India's presence cannot be ignored. And at the same time, India has taken a very clear stand on Ukraine. And at the same time, President Biden also said, we the people. And the importance of people lies in the fact that Mr. Modi also said during the joint meeting of the Congress, it is the era of peace. It is not the era
Hmm.
of war.
Yeah.
I think this is a very global message. And at the same time, the narrative being set by some left wingers about human rights situation in India. But I think Prime Minister Modi is able to convey and showcase during his address to the Congress that diversity and democracy is in our DNA. And we have very clearly demonstrated during the past 9 years our contribution to the infrastructure, to the inclusion, and at the same time, we have also contributed to the world by presenting or by gifting a vaccine to 150 countries. So I feel this meeting definitely reflects the intention, the information, the trust, the understanding, and the friendship.
Thank you, Rakeshji. Yeah, I mean, when I last time interacted with you right after the congressional address, the points that you highlighted are so relevant. And I still remember that you mentioned when he talked about like sabka vikas and sabka prayas. So he is planning on taking everybody together with the intentions that he has. So my question, going back to Ravi, is Ravi, this partnership between India and US, how do you think this partnership is very important? And I think this is the best time for this partnership to bloom. This is the right time, perfect time for this partnership, especially with so much importance being given to the startups and the youth. And I personally have interacted with you at many platforms that you are the champion and you are bringing youth in front. So how do you see this partnership being so important at this point of time, right after this visit, after all these decisions have been taken? How do you see it?
That's a very, very important point, Prachi ji, because I think you really hit the nail on its head. Because a recent world population report, revealed in April this year when it was released, that by the year 2065, India will have a population of 1.7 billion people. And the energy demand of these 1.7 billion people is going to skyrocket, right? By the same time, China's population, you'll be surprised, will actually fall from 1.3 billion to 700 million. The second point I want to pick up is exactly what you said, is to magnify that out of that 1.7 billion, India will continue to have its biggest youth bulge that Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji really talks about all the time, that we must skill our young people. And I think the other piece which is critical, as I said earlier, is that not only that it's young people, but I think India is really doing a lot to really invest in middle schools, in universities, and really encouraging young people to initiate startups. Right, in my generation back when most of us were in India, we were part of bringing up becoming engineers and government jobs and so on and so forth. But now it is amazing. In fact, it's really looked down upon when you say, "Oh, I'm going to join a job." People get very excited. What kind of startup are you starting, and what is the support system that you coming in? Just in last 10 years alone, India has climbed 65, the steps in terms of ease of business. It's the number three location in terms of innovation of startups starting every day. I mean, number three. That only tells you that amount of young unicorns and the possibility and the ecosystem that is being created and being championed by Prime Minister Modi ji and Honorable Minister Piyush ji, Rajiv ji. Everyone is looking at it. On your specific point that what does it really mean for us in sustainability? Of course, we can look at from a policy perspective, where Rakesh ji was saying, because we're also right before on 8th and 9th September you have the G20, and again all the meetings leading up to G20 as Modi ji has done, and I was part of some of them. Every single dimension of those meetings must showcase clearly their commitment to sustainability. Absolutely wonderful, right? I think that's something which we are seeing very clearly from a leadership that not only embraces the Paris principles and the sustainable development goals, but also has brought in the private sector, including the public sector and citizens themselves, to take on everyday action. Swachh Bharat is one of the best examples, right? Amount of startups that have just come under on, waste management. If you look at the joint, declaration that came by the White House, and India, it very clearly looks at the whole focus on looking at the clean technology and saying that India and US can come together, bring together the ecosystem, and start up some joint efforts by which entrepreneurs can come and innovate and work together on creating clean technology initiatives. Similarly, if you look at the issue of energy storage, like the example I was giving you, I remember writing in February when Jammu discovered its lithium deposit, and I said, one thing that India should do or not do is export raw lithium. In fact, India has this huge potential of making Jammu the global hub for lithium ion battery manufacturing. And how will that happen, right? And you saw that very clear being signaled in the meeting by Elon Musk, saying that India has the potential to really become the base and the capital for EV. And given the demand on automobiles and the Generation Z, very clearly saying that we do not want to have gas dependency. We want to look at the transit, the hybrids. We want to look at transportation that is powered by green hydrogen or by solar and so on and so forth, is going to be very exciting. And similarly, I think the International Solar Alliance is a very good example where India has championed this issue, which many people were mocking at the beginning and saying that, what does India mean by championing the International Solar Alliance? And now US is saying, and I know, one of these champions we all know, Simarpreet, who was with us in Chicago, who was a winner of the Pride of India award. He's the number three. He's about 32 years old. The third, his company is number three in India in terms of the solar installation. And I was speaking to him 2 days ago. He said, I can't sleep. I said, what happened? He said, I'm watching every single Modi ji's and Biden's speech in a loop because I just can't look at the opportunity. Because now look at this. We were discussing India as a solar hub, and our people from Texas are calling him and saying that we want to collaborate with you in India because we trust you other than China, because China just completely, people are completely backtracking away, and decoupling of China is happening, saying that what are the lessons learned in India in terms of solar manufacturing and solar installation that we can replicate. Similarly, the India's green hydrogen, initiative, which is completely like many people in France, Spain, and I would say including Norway, were really saying, how come India is coming up with such clear commitment on green hydrogen? Of course, the hydrogen is about 10 times in solar, but to have that, wisdom, and to kind of bring that into this meeting in Washington and saying that, yes, we are very committed to solar, but we also are looking at other hybrid issues of green hydrogen. That's where the investments, the opportunity, and the opportunity is very big, because by the year 2050, you're looking at the world generating 50% of its energy coming out of these, renewable sources of energy, which means that it also opens up about $45 trillion in, opportunity for people to make money. So you can not only do great for the planet, but you can also make money out of doing this. And the third example I would like to do is give the example of biofuel, right? I think we very clearly see that India's very clear commitment on looking at how can we look at, whether it's 10% or 20% infusion into the ongoing demands for, petroleum, and infuse it so that we can really reduce and at the same time increase the biofuel, consumption. And that's what you're seeing. So what are the ways by which US and India together look at joint technologies, look at innovations in this area that can be a game changer, not only for India but also for USA and the rest of the world. And for us, some of us like us, we started the India 2047 New York Investors Forum because we realized over the last 2 decades, India was seen as a service provider, right? Looking at all these amazing professionals in the Silicon Valley. And we said, while that is great and we must kind of build on to the champions and say that what can we do here in New York? And we said, let's start India 2047, which is inspired by the tricolor of India. The orange is exactly what you said, Prachi ji, which is the Shakti, which is the energy, the renewable sources of energy, be it biofuel, solar, green hydrogen, and so on and so forth. White being the digital stack that India is talking about by 2030, looking at 1 trillion just coming through the digital stack. Example being the UPI, and that's another example that people talked about. That India is not just saying that we want to catch up on MS DOS and Word, but we actually going to export the UPI to the rest of the
Yeah.
world. And last, not the least, and I think it goes into Vinay, is the green, which is all about agriculture. Thank you.
So that really brings us to the manufacturing of it. I mean, Vinay, you might have heard so many things what Rakesh ji and definitely Ravi was telling. You know, there is definitely a lot of opportunities, we can say it. And so, what's your take on? I know what are the key challenges in the current scenario you are actually establishing in the manufacturing, and just combining with this, what is the foster technology for transfers. I mean, yes, we have made some kind of a progress with respect to technology transfers in defense. What is that you are actually connecting those transfer deals, whatever happened in the manufacturing industry?
I think overall manufacturing in both India and US is at a very, very pivotal tipping point. Okay. And you've heard China in all these conversations. The reason is multifold. Obviously, COVID is, everybody understands the supply chain. It's a coffee table discussion along with AI now. Which is interesting in itself. But what it also gives, as food for thought is there is definitely a push here in the US to bring manufacturing back home, and there is definitely a push in India to make in India for companies outside of India to use India as a manufacturing hub, and companies in India themselves to kind of expand. So both the countries are, I would say, at a cusp of a renaissance in manufacturing. Okay, with that in
Mm.
place, we also have challenges here in the US. We definitely have challenges in terms of availability of labor, qualified labor, and in India, it is also a challenge where the amount of work, the quality of products we want to deliver needs a lot of automation. And India has been, heavily reliant on manual labor for a long time. So we have this unique challenge where labor is available in one area, labor is not available in one area, but both are approaching this problem by bringing in automation in manufacturing, driving autonomous manufacturing. Okay, for very different reasons, but the outcome is the same, and their path to do this is going to be the same. So what does that tell us? It tells us that both economies, both countries are going to be looking at manufacturing very closely and driving a lot of smart manufacturing, smart factory initiatives
Mm.
in both countries. Okay, and how they do it is going to be different. Okay, so while in the US, what we're seeing is there is a lot more appetite to really go towards the autonomous manufacturing. Especially a discrete manufacturing, you'll see that there already is that move towards autonomous, just the nature of discrete. But a majority of manufacturing is really a process manufacturing, right? Things that we eat, things that our papers or our food that we eat, the chemical specialty chemicals like detergents and so on. So CPG, it's a lot of process manufacturing for us as customers. But what we then see is driving autonomous manufacturing there is going to be very challenging. So manufacturing automation is going to be critical there. So for both India and US, for different reasons, manufacturing and automation in manufacturing is going to be key. And the challenges there is the appetite of companies to really
Mm.
adopt that. Okay, um, and while we take that challenge, we also see that the only way that you talked about opportunities, the only way to drive this opportunity home to the next level is by bringing in these digital technologies, these digital platforms, the digital mindsets to make this happen. Um, and guess what? India has that mindset. India has that manpower. The US has that wherewithal. So I think this is another area where I think naturally the two countries can partner. I think it's going to be an interesting time that we will see. How two different countries with different backgrounds, different culture, different problems to solve are going to take the same path and try to end up at the same destination.
Thanks, Vinay. Thanks a lot. Thanks for giving us, an idea about the challenges and the opportunity, and especially at this time, these critical times where a lot is happening on the global level as well as back in India. So this question is actually from our viewers that they had for you guys, everybody. So I'll start from Rakesh ji, and then we can move from other one panelist to the other. So if we talk about, all the eyes were on this visit by Prime Minister Modi to the United States. And when I'm talking about all eyes were on this visit, I'm not talking about just the United States. I'm talking about all
Everybody.
everybody back in India as well.
Absolutely.
So the question that I was going to ask from on behalf of my viewers for all of you was like, what next? And especially when G20 is around the corner in September. How can we capitalize on this trip, and from this trip all the way to G20? What is it that we're looking forward to? What is in your wish list? If I talk to each one of you, what are you looking forward to from G20? If we start all the way from the decision made during this recent trip. So I'm just going to, have you guys start one by one with your answers. I'll start with you, Rakesh.
Thank you, Parachi ji. And this visit is by design. It is not that something is just happen in isolation.
Mm.
Everything you look at, what has been agreed and what has been discussed, is primarily look at the programs which being practiced in India and started by Prime Minister Modi and his government, be it Swachh Bharat, be it Janadhan Yojana, be it
Hmm.
Atmanirbhar Bharat, be it Make in India. So you will have a glimpse of this, and it is primarily in a way to implement all of those things, and people are recognizing the importance of such programs. Last week, even the president of Russia, Mr. Putin, also appreciated the program called Make in India. So we have based all this effort on two fundamental.
Hmm.
One is Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, which means the whole world is one family. The principle has been integral part of our social behavior. And the second is secure, SECURE, which stands for security, economic development, connectivity, unity, respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity, and environmental protection. Now, every country works on their strengths and try to improve on the challenges. Infrastructure being one of the challenge. So we were working for the last 10 years very heavily on infrastructure. The reason is how the investment in India is going to come when the world is now looking at India for a supply chain, and at the same time the manufacturing needs to support the exports. Now, to reiterate that, if you look at India relationship with the US, it has strengthened year after year, and primarily because of the economic ties. Now, if you look at the trade, it has reached a record 191 billion in 2022, and which makes India is one of the largest trading partner with the United States. And let's not talk about the challenges. Look at the strengths. India has the most educated younger generation. India has the democracy. It has the stability. It has the strongest banking system. It has the strongest postal system. And it has producing digital natives. So, which means if you look at the UPI and anything, like for example, one of the path breaking uh, development was the Civil Nuclear Cooperation Agreement. Now, if you look at the Civil Nuclear Cooperation Agreement, that started the process of easing restriction on India's access to a higher level defense, and and the dual use of technologies in the United States. But at the same time, I will say the several US companies such as um, Micron, Applied
Hmm.
Materials, and Lam Research, they announce investments for semiconductor testings and assembling facilities, engineering collaboration, training, and skill development. So there are many areas. So I feel this visit is going to complement and accelerate all those efforts which are already there. One important thing, this discussion cannot be concluded if we don't mention of two things. One is the decision to, you know, H1B visa renewal, which is
Oh
going to be very,
yes.
very significant for the Indian American diaspora here, and especially the younger. They don't have to go back to India or any country for the visa stamping. I think this is very significant development, and which we cannot undermine. And another thing, as I mentioned earlier, but then in specific, I think the decision on an unprecedented transfer of 414 jet engine technology and co-production in India is also going to be very, very significant. So I thought H1B visa and jet engine transfer is something very, very important outcome of this visit.
I, totally reiterating the points Rakesh you wonderfully explained. But for me, I'll give you an example on a challenge. Right, this morning I was speaking on a tech news platform, and somebody made a comment about semiconductor manufacturing and saying that India is so dirty, and semiconductor manufacturing needs complete, pristine, clean spaces and very clear discipline. And there was just to say that it was almost sounded like a mockery. But then when I spoke and I said, guys, did you get a vaccine in the last, because of COVID, you get a vaccine? I said, I think you're forgetting that India is supplying not only a vaccine for COVID, but for many more, including polio. I said, all that is produced in one of the best, better than the world's best platform, with Serum Institute in Pune. I said, so you do not underestimate. So challenge really for me is that there is continuous, misinformation and disinformation that I feel that we, as some of us who are part of the diaspora, really need to come together, especially for us who are looking at investments and looking at this opportunity that Rakeshji talked about. And that's the second challenge. The second challenge is really that till now, India was seen as the base for being the service industry on technology and many other back offices. I think the fact that Rakeshji just said, just in the last 2 weeks, we've seen some very big, whether it's HP or Macron and many others who are making everyday announcements on setting up their manufacturing. So manufacturing make in India is going to be very, very critical because that's where the investments are going to come. I mean, the fact that India has resisted Tesla and Elon for so many years and negotiated till the brink. So, I mean, it's great to see him as a very strong politician, but I also think he's a very strong and a very wise business negotiator because ultimately he said, I'm only going to meet you, Elon, if you're going to set up a giga factory in India. And that's so critical because that means more jobs. And to create those jobs, and that's the third challenge, is really that given the opportunity that Vinay talked about, artificial intelligence, the digital economy, we're also looking at these young people that can be a huge opportunity to be skilled and not only become the skilled worker for India's manufacturing and various other opportunities. You saw that in 2 weeks ago. Japan made a request to India for the first time and said, will you please open up and we want to bring in skilled workers from India to Japan. And that's my last piece, I would say. I think the opportunity is huge. So the opportunities totally outweigh the challenges, given that we must continue to have and really drum around the vision. And that's why the meeting, the address of the Congress was very important, bipartisan, because that also takes care of the issue of 2024, whatever the election results will be here in USA. That one thing is clear, that India is in a very important space of becoming the global hub for manufacturing. And the fact that, the Mineral Security Partnership and MSP that was announced, right, and looking at these critical minerals coming together, that's a very strong indicator. We saw the announcements with the whole aerospace industry, the defense industry, right? And I think these are small indicators. And I think for us, we need to make sure that when we are opening up and looking at manufacturing, we are creating the most skilled, efficient workers and really being ready for the AI driven fourth industrial revolution. And I very strongly believe we are there. And really, in the last 10 years, and the export numbers for just 2022, it's about $725 billion India is exporting right now. That's a huge number. And I always say Piyush ji doesn't really like to get acknowledged, but I think we also have a very fantastic cabinet, which is, working 24 hours with the Honorable Prime Minister's vision.
I think the way I'm looking at it primarily from a technology and a manufacturing and kind of a food, kind of putting that together, the three of them together, right? Um, we definitely have skilled labor. In fact, Satya Nadella, when he was in India, he talked about India having the largest number of data scientists and data engineers in the world, right? So that tells you something, and this is really the hottest area today. So how do we channel that enormous talent pool that we have to solve the right problems and create the biggest value, not only for India, not only for US, but really for humanity, right? What is it that we can make in India, make for the world? And what more basic and universal than challenges around food security, challenges around making our lives better, and through technology, right? So we have the manpower there, and in that sense, just last in the last quarter of 2022, India really became, adding to what Ravi had said, India became the number one country in the world that had the most number of startups in that quarter. So not only are we do we have that talent, we always had, but now you can see the belief in ourselves that we can do it. Okay, so that's a huge change. with the acknowledgement. Sometimes it is good to have an outside in acknowledgement as well. The various countries in the world have also started acknowledging, appreciating the fact that, hey, not only are they always there, they're now moving the needle not only for themselves but for the rest of the world as well. So I think we're there. We just have to find the right challenges for us to solve. Just a call out for all of those champions, those heroes, and sheroes, as Ravi mentioned, to kind of come out and do our bit towards this India-US partnership, make US stronger, make India stronger, this partnership stronger. And I think all of us putting that together can just make ourselves proud, and make us that much more integral part of the US.
That's very well said. Thank you, Vinay. Thank you very much. And again, as all of our panelists mentioned, there are challenges, but there are strengths and there are opportunities as well. We just need to tap them, and this is the right time. And as Ravi mentioned, that uh, all of our guests mentioned that Indian diaspora can definitely play a vital role towards
Absolutely.
this goal. Absolutely. Um, on that note, I would like to thank all our panelists and thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
And it was a very insightful discussion. And there's a lot that, as you all mentioned, there are opportunities. We just need to tap them. Thank you all for joining. We hope to see you back in our studio again. But thank you very much for giving us your time. Thank you, Rakesh ji. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, Vinay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much
Thank
for
you
Thank,
for
having us
having
on the
us.
show.
thank you. Bye
Thank
bye.
Thank
you.
you.
So as all of you heard that our panelists had a lot to share, and from their respective fields, from their experience, they had a lot to contribute to the discussion. So funny, as you heard our panelists, there is a plethora of opportunities. We just need to tap them. And as I mentioned, Indian diaspora does play a very important role.
So,
What's your take on the entire discussion?
I mean, we have heard in three specific topics, but if you have seen it, the scope was huge, enormous, and two nations will take the relationship to the next level.
Yeah,
We just have to see that this is definitely be fruitful, and then this is the relationship for next decade. That's what I'm hearing, and we have a lot of work to do in the follow up.
hmm,
And that is what we are going to do. We can bring in different type of perspective and type of other experts into our next episodes, and tie it together so that we can actually produce the results and show it to the world.
absolutely. So, thank you all for joining us in this episode. We will keep bringing more and more sessions like this, brainstorming, mind ticketing, thought provoking from our subject matter experts right on this platform, My Take, that has been built just for you for some amazing content that is going to take us to new opportunities and new strengths in future in the next coming decade. This is Prachi, Jaitly, and Phani Krishna signing off. We'll see you in our next episode at My Take.
See you soon.